What's up, guys? I just wanted to talk a little bit about the testing session that went on at Las Vegas with the new Aero package. Everybody seems to have their own opinion about it, so I figured might as well let you guys know what I think if you care. Um, since it was first announced, you guys, those of you who do watch my videos, know that I am not one of these people who are crazy about this package. Ever since the All-Star race last year, I didn't like what I saw. I think the fact that a lot of people came out and they were like screaming for NASCAR, oh, we need to make this for every race what we saw in the All-Star race and blah blah. I'm not going to get into all my opinions about that race. I already talked about it. I do think it was an okay race. I don't think it was as great as people made it out to be. And there's things about the package and the intentions of NASCAR that I really don't like. I'm not going to tell you that I'm completely 100% against the package. I'm going to give it a chance. And what we saw at Vegas, it was only a few cars on the track. It's paved. It's a freshly paved track. Every track's slightly different. So what we saw at Vegas isn't necessarily going to be what we see week after week at every different track. So I'm only talking about this track, right? And it did confirm some things that I was worried about. But in all fairness, there are a few things that I liked about it. So first, I'm going to talk about the positives, right? From the limited exposure that package got at Vegas, it seems that the cars from like 5th place to the back, they're all scrambling around for positions all the time. They're all very close together, kind of, but they're always jockeying for position. So if you're focused on the entire field, there's always some racing going on somewhere in the track. And that's a positive. I think it's good. Another positive is it doesn't seem, at least in this track, that the cars are going to be in a super tight pack like Daytona and Talladega. That's been my number one problem with the intent of the package, or what it seems to be from the All-Star race, is pack racing. I am not a fan of pack racing. I'm not a fan of restrictor plate racing. Daytona and Talladega for me are the most boring races of the year. That's just my opinion. I'm not a fan. And there's several reasons for that. The fact that these cars are just in a conga line lap after lap after lap, it's boring. And if you watch a restrictor plate race, 95% of that race is just boring. And some people even drop to the back just in case there's an accident because they know they can move their way up to the front. That's the way restrictor plate racing works. It's very aerodynamic dependent, and some people are better at it than others. But I've always considered restrictor plate racing a manipulated form of racing. And what I mean by that is that a lot of it is outside of the control of the driver. So when I tell you that it feels manipulated, that's what I mean. It's really not 100% in the driver's hands. You can't really move up without help. So you need someone else to help you. That's number one. Number two, lanes have to open up. Because it's pack racing, there's nowhere to go. And you can't do anything until a hole opens up. That's completely out of the driver's control. Under other racing, normal racing at other tracks, you usually, not always, but you have multiple grooves, multiple lanes. You can choose different lanes. You can try to set someone up for a pass. You can pull a slingshot maneuver. Some cars work really well at the top. Other cars work well at the bottom. You can tune your car to run better in the top of the bottom. There's a lot of options for drivers. And because you're not in a pack, you feel like your destiny's in your hands. With this type of racing, it just seems to me like the intent by NASCAR is to give us more pack racing, more Daytona Talladega style racing, which to me is the last thing they should do. But I keep hearing from a lot of people, not everybody, how exciting, how much fans love pack racing. They may not say it in those exact words, but they're talking about this side-to-side racing, and they try to word it differently, but at the end of the day, it is pretty similar to Daytona Talladega style racing. I hate that style of racing. Now, I'm only speaking for myself. Some of you out there may love that. I don't understand. It's just lap after lap of the same cars just bunched up together, and you're waiting for something to happen. And unfortunately, a lot of times the most exciting parts of those races are the wrecks. That's not a good thing. NASCAR is a sport. If it wants to be respected as a sport, you don't want people coming in just to watch wrecks. That gives it more of I would call it a wrestling type of atmosphere where everything is staged just for entertainment value. It's not really a sport. It's kind of scripted. Now, I'm not telling you that this is scripted racing. It's not. But there's so much out of control of the driver's hands. Now, don't take my word for it. Other drivers have talked about it, and Kyle Busch came straight out and said these cars are too easy to drive. Anybody can drive them. You're running wide open. Now, I know that at other tracks, you may not be able to run wide open. Or maybe after 25, 30 laps, you can't run wide open at Vegas. But you shouldn't be able to run wide open at a 1.5-mile track. And it's all due to the gigantic spoiler and the reduction in horsepower. As far as the horsepower goes, I think there's not enough horsepower. And it's a cup car. It should have the most power. It should be at least give you a visceral sense of power. These cars are meant to be high horsepower, loud, and sort of like a bull in a china shop. This isn't Formula One racing. This isn't some other type of racing where these cars are, $1 million cars with all this technology, basically planes on wheels. These are stock cars. They're supposed to be hard to handle. And not that long ago, just a few years ago, everyone was talking about that the direction NASCAR needs to go is to make the cars harder to drive. How do you do that? You reduce the spoiler so there's not enough downforce, so that the car is always on edge. That's where the driver's skill level comes to the forefront. You do that with high horsepower, low downforce. They went the opposite way. There's less power and much more downforce. Now, I get that the purpose of the wing is to punch a bigger hole in the air and allow cars behind you to be able to make a run. But that sounds to me like it's a manipulated form of racing. Everything's aero dependent. I think that's going to hurt the racing. And by the way, I don't understand how people, again, this is just my opinion, I didn't think the racing last year was that bad. I keep hearing how horrible the racing's become. Last year, I do think we got a lot of great races. Not every week. There were some races here and there that weren't great. But there was a lot of great races. And I even remember people talking about certain races, about how much excitement there was throughout the race. And this feels like a panic move by NASCAR. They're making such a huge change. You don't really know how it's going to work out. I'm not against change, but man, that's a lot of change. And you don't really know what you're going to get. And if it turns out that most of these races are going to feel like the All-Star race, and it's just constant pack racing, I'm going to hate it. And again, I'm open to the idea that this might work out. It may turn out to be good. And I'm not telling you right now that it's going to fail. I'm just telling you the red flags that are there for me. And the type of things that I consider exciting doesn't come from pack racing. Doesn't come from Daytona and Talladega. I don't get it, man. Those are some of the most boring races. It's just 3 hours of a conga line, and sometimes nothing happens for a long portion of the race. And when something happens, it's usually a wreck. And the leaders, they're very hard to pass. You know, it's like once you're out front, clean air is still going to be king. So yeah, you know what? Some of the racing might be exciting from like 5th place on, or who knows. When there's more cars on the track, right? There was only a limited amount of cars at Vegas. How is that going to work out? Maybe there's more cars on the track. It's going to probably bring bigger packs closer together. It's just going to it might turn into Talladega. So I see more red flags than positives. Again, about the horsepower, I'm not like, oh my God, you got to have 750 horsepower. You know, a lot of the actual overall speed, it's not going to be noticeable to the naked eye. And I've always thought that it's really how these cars race each other. It's not about the top speeds. It's how they race against each other. And how that works out. That's really what gives you a sense of power and speed and all that. But I think that they have reached the point where I'm like, okay, now you're talking what, 550 horse? That's really, I don't know, man. I think they went too far with it. I think, I'm just ballparking it. Maybe another 50, 75 horse might be that sweet spot, right? 625, something like that. Just a little extra power, just to get just to get the car just on edge a little more. Again, some drivers are saying that these cars are too easy to drive. They're saying anyone can drive it, and you're running wide open around a 1.5 mile track for quite a while. That shouldn't be the case with a stock car. Stock cars are not supposed to be the type of cars you run wide open at these. I get it. Daytona and Talladega, those are massive tracks, but man, I have real reservations about this package. I'm not crazy about it. And this idea that the racing was so terrible, I'm not saying it was perfect, but it wasn't that bad. I don't know what's going to happen. You're still going to have the same guys at the front, because they're still going to have the slight edge with the best cars. And I guess guys that are really good at restrictor plate racing, they're going to like this stuff, because as Kyle Busch himself said, it's, you're running wide open. It's not so much about what you can do as a driver, but the decisions you're making. It's like a chess game. Which lane am I going to pick? Where am I going to go? How am I going to make this pass? It sounds exciting on paper, but it's not. He wasn't happy with it, and he was able to go to the back and come to the front almost at will. Again, the type of stuff you see in Daytona and Talladega. I think it's like NASCAR is they're putting a lot into this package. This could be the final nail in the coffin. I think they a lot of the things they should have worked on and focused as a sport, they haven't. things I've talked about already, and then the things when it comes to these packages, you know, I've talked about the actual package in itself, and I've always thought that you got to make these cars less aerodynamic. You know, the whole reason that the racing's become stale is because of aerodynamics. And we didn't see this back in the old days. You know, those cars were a lot boxier. They weren't as low to the ground. I think these cars they're almost scraping the ground. They're sucked up into the track. I don't know. Maybe the right heights, something they could play with there. I think that a bigger spoiler, I get it. It's supposed to punch a bigger hole in the air, but it also makes these cars glued to the track. Where's the skill level that comes in for the drivers? And I can't stand Kyle Busch, but he is a great driver, and his opinions when it comes to, you know, driving these cars, you know, I have to respect it. You know, it's not about whether I actually like the person talking about something. If they have a point to make, it's a logical point. I'm going to agree with it. So, I don't know, man. You know, it's still a big question mark. I know it sounds like I'm telling you guys this thing's going to fail. I'm not going there yet. I'm going to give it a chance. And maybe at other tracks, you get a completely different type of feel. But, I don't know, man. It's like, I just feel NASCAR's just throwing things at a wall, hoping to see what sticks. That's not a good sign for the sport. I don't know, man. It'd be nice, you know, I did hear somebody mention how maybe other manufacturers are thinking about coming into the sport. I say the more the merrier. I think we do need more manufacturers in the sport. I would love, I'm a Dodge man, so I would love to see Dodge come back. I think that the expense of the sport, I think there's so much involved that's why they got out. I don't know if they'd be willing to come back. I don't care what manufacturer wants to come. You know, I welcome all of them with open arms. Anybody that looks at this and says, hey, man, let's go. Let's put our brand in there. I love it. The more the merrier. I really don't care who it is. I don't care if it's a Japanese manufacturer, European, whatever. Bring it. You know, some people are these hardcore people who don't want to change ever. I'm not one of those people. So if it brings more manufacturers, it's great. I don't know what else I can say positive-wise, but the way that the racing turned out, and from what I heard from some of these drivers, I don't like what I'm hearing so far. So, I mean, they're pretty dead set on this thing, so it's going to happen. So, I want to know what you guys think of it. If you saw some of the testing or read some of these comments from the drivers and whatever, what do you think about it? Do you share the concerns that I have? If not, let me know. As always, I look forward to your comments, and I'll see you guys around.